It says we are now live. There we go. I always like to wait a second or two. Hello, my name is Jameis. I am a programmer at Waterloo Public Library, and I am super lucky today to be inside For All Ice Cream. For today's program video, if you have any questions or comments that you want me to pass along to our presenter, who I'll introduce in 1 second, please type them into the Facebook or YouTube comments below, and I'll be monitoring them while simultaneously helping broadcast the video, and we'll try to ask them as we're going along. But without any further ado, I would like to present to you Ajoa and her daughter, Leah.
Hi, I'm Ajoa, and this is Leah. And we want to say welcome to For All Ice Cream. We're excited to be here and excited to show you how we make ice cream and show you guys how you guys can make ice cream at home as well. All right, so we'll get started. So first of all, I'm going to talk about what ice cream is, and then this will give some context as to just some of the things we're going to talk about. So ice cream is essentially a mixture of, or it's a combination of 5 key components, 5 basic components. So ice cream has fat in it, it has water, which forms ice, it has sweeteners, it has air, which is a very important component, and then solids. I'm going to talk about what each of those components does briefly. So air, I also have notes here, just make sure I don't forget anything. So air actually prevents the ice cream from being too sweet, and it provides structure, and it also just helps control how it melts in your mouth. Then we've got sweeteners. For us, sweeteners that we use are sugar or maple syrup or honey, and it's actually a very crucial component to our ice cream because it's what gives our ice cream its scoopability. Then we've got fat. Fat adds richness and also contributes to flavor. Then we have ice crystals or water, and that basically gives us that icy texture. And so for us, we're aiming to get our ice crystals to be smaller than 40 microns. Smaller than 40 microns is how we keep the texture nice and creamy. And then the last component are other solids. So solids help give the ice cream body. So for us, sometimes we'll use something like milk powder to provide the solids. And then there's also other special solids that we use in our ice creams, like stabilizers. And what that does is it just helps our ice cream travel well. Since we make the ice cream, then we ship it out to different places. So it's a key component as well for us. So this is our factory, and we're just going to take a bit of a walk through just to talk through how we make ice cream here. So to get those 5 key components in our ice cream, we use a few ingredients, stuff that you have in your house as well. So here is our pasteurizer, and this is where we make our ice cream base. And so here's where we are combining milk, cream, and sugar. Those are the key components. And again, we talked about stabilizers. They go into the mix as well as milk powder, just to give us the solids content, to give the ice cream a little bit of body. So basically all those ingredients get dumped into here. They get heated up, held at a certain temperature for a period of time. We record that happens. And that's actually important for us because we are a licensed dairy plant. So we keep a lot of records on how we make our ice cream. Each batch of ice cream gets monitored and recorded. So we make our ice cream mix here. Once it's made, we're not quite ready to make ice cream yet because we've just disrupted a lot of the fat, like everything's been melted and kind of mixed together. So the next thing we're going to do is get our ice cream into a fridge. We've got a massive walk-in fridge next door, but for now I'll just show you kind of our small fridge here. And so the ice cream is going to go into our fridge and it's going to age. And what that does is that it helps the fat structure, the fat crystals, reorganize themselves and get ready to be the ice cream. Another important part of ice cream is that we have just combined, fat and water together. They don't really like each other. So one other key ingredient in our ice cream is actually an emulsifier. We use an all-natural emulsifier, which is actually egg yolk. So egg yolk is another one of our key components in our ice creams. So from there, after aging our ice cream, we're now ready to flavor the ice cream. So we work at this table here. We'll get our ice creams all measured out. And we'll add the various flavors. So vanilla, to make vanilla ice cream, maybe use strawberry puree to get a strawberry ice cream, or chocolate syrup to get a chocolate ice cream. So now we go over to our batch freezer. So the batch freezer, this is the workhorse, and this kind of drives our day every single day. And this is where we make our ice cream. So the ice creams, this gets all closed and locked up, and the ice cream gets poured into here. And this is essentially a giant freezer and beater. And what it's going to do, I'm just going to give it an open, is that the ice cream basically rotates in here and it freezes against this wall on the edge here. As the ice cream is starting to freeze, it's forming ice crystals, but we want to keep those ice crystals as small as possible. So we're scraping and breaking down those ice crystals every time it spins around. And then the other key thing that this machine is doing is that it's introducing air to the ice cream, just to give it that nice fluffy texture that we know in ice cream and keep it nice and soft. And so it churns in here. It only takes about 10 minutes for a batch to get made. We pour all the ice cream out into containers. We package the ice cream. So maybe it's a tub, maybe it's one of our little mini cups, maybe it's one of our half-liter jars. And the ice cream's almost ready. We can sample it and kind of get an idea of, yep, this is a good batch. But then we go to the very, very critical last test of ice cream making. I'm just going to walk over here to another set of freezers, and these are our blast freezers. And so we've got these two here, and our blast freezers basically lock in those ice crystals. We've just made this yummy mixture, and it has ice in it. We want to make sure that that ice is locked in at the smallest size possible, and the blast freezer is what helps us do that. So once it sits there for about 8 hours, we let our ice cream sit overnight. That's a finished ice cream, so that's the process. So from start to finish, making ice cream for us takes about 2 days. We make the mix on one day, and then we make the finished ice creams the next day. So it's at least 2 days to make a batch of delicious ice cream. Okay, are you guys ready to make some ice cream with us? Let's go. Okay, so I'm going to talk through how to do ice cream at home, and Leah, my assistant, is here to demonstrate and make some ice cream with you guys or for you guys, and then you guys can repeat this at home. So this is a pretty simple ice cream mix. So similar to how we would make an ice cream mix in our pasteurizer, we're going to do one here in this bowl using pretty similar ingredients. So we're going to start off with some cream. So Leah can get that poured in. And we're going to start also with some milk. Perfect. We're going to stir in some sugar. Sugar is going to, again, help make it nice and scoopable. You can put it all in. And then some vanilla. So the quantities that we just put in, it was a cup of cream, a cup of milk, half a cup of sugar, and a tablespoon of vanilla. And it seems like it might be, you can stir it, Leah, give it a stir. And you're just going to try to get the sugar to dissolve as much as possible. That's what we're stirring for. So the vanilla that got added was a full tablespoon, which might seem like a lot. But one thing you have to keep in mind is that cold actually numbs our taste buds. So we want to, like when you're making ice cream, you kind of want to amp that flavor up just to get it, make sure that it comes through. This isn't a time to put in too little. You got to put in a good amount to make sure that you get the tastiness that you're looking for. That looks good, Leah, but let's have a quick feel. Oh, you got a little bit more sugar, so give it a bit more stirring. That looks pretty good. Okay. So now we need to freeze the ice cream. If you had an ice cream maker at home, you could actually pour this mix right into it and churn away. I actually have a couple at home, and that's what I would use for testing. But here, instead of using a freezer, we're going to make our own freezer using salt and ice. And I don't know if you guys have tried this experiment at home. It's kind of fun. And we'll do that right now because it actually happens pretty quickly. And so essentially what we're doing is that we all know that water freezes into ice at 0 degrees Celsius, which isn't actually cold enough to make ice cream. So when we add that salt, we're going to depress the freezing point to make it actually go colder than 0 degrees. And it actually makes it cold enough to freeze our ice cream mix pretty quickly. Okay, so I'm just going to help you in a second, Leah. Actually, you know what? Let's pour it in right now. We can do the other part later. So we're just going to pour in about half a cup of ice cream into a small Ziploc bag. As carefully as possible, and it may make a mess, and we'll deal with that later. Let's see if that's about half a cup. That looks like half a cup. Let's put a tiny bit more. I'm actually going to stir this a little bit more to get a bit more of the sugar. And here, you do want to try to dissolve as much sugar into your mixture as possible. Again, from the comfort of your own home, you might choose to heat it just to try to get that sugar to dissolve as quickly as possible. It's not important that you do. And just keep in mind that if you do heat it to get that sugar dissolved, you've got to cool it back down before you can go on to the next step. So we're just going to add a little bit more of the mix into our bag. Oops. Okay. That might be more than what I said to do, but that's okay. Okay. So this is going to be our little ice cream, like our ice cream container that's going to hold the ice cream that's going to get made. So I'm just going to take it out because I want to get as much of the air out as possible. And this is only so that it doesn't burst open on us later. So we're going to just seal it nice and tight.
If it gets burst, it's going to get salty.
Okay. And we think it's okay. So we think it's nicely sealed.
It's very great.
Okay, so we'll put that there. And now we're going to get the ice. This is what's going to help freeze up our ice cream. So you'll need a small Ziploc bag and then a large Ziploc bag. We're going to put this into here. But actually, I'm just going to get some ice. Give me a moment. So I said that you need about 6 cups of ice total. It's about 2. Small ice into here. It's very strong, and you definitely want a lot of flavor. So with about 6 cups of ice, you want about half a cup of sugar, or so. Oh my gosh, not sugar, salt.
Salty sugar. It won't work.
Okay, Leah, do you want to pour the salt in?
All of it?
All of it. Okay, so this unseen bag of salt and ice is going to help freeze our ice cream super duper cool. Yes. So we're going to place this in. Leah, can you put this in for me?
Now close it.
Yeah, close it. I'm just going to get some of the air out.
I can't open or close this one.
Okay. I'm just going to try to get that nestled in there. Okay, so now we're going to start shaking it. It's a very, very cold. It gets very, very cold. So sometimes having a Ziploc bag, or rather having a tea towel, just to hold it. Yep, so you can start shaking it. It's going to take a little while. I don't know if there are any questions at this point.
None yet. None yet. I'll keep watching.
This might be a good time for questions while we shake, shake, shake.
I have a question.
Let's hear your question, Leah.
How long does the ice cream have to age?
How long does the ice cream have to age before we freeze it, or before we?
It's like for the next step.
So after we make our mix, we actually want to age it for at least 4 hours. We like to put our ice cream mix in the fridge for overnight before we use it. If we're in a rush, I suppose we could always make it earlier, but just we found that the texture is different. It doesn't last as long, so we like to make sure that we're aged fully. So try shaking it like this for a little while.
Okay.
And stay over top of the table just in case.
What if we drop it? It'll take a lot.
Might wrap it up.
Wait.
Even that one.
When you shake milk, doesn't it turn into butter if you shake it too much?
If you shake milk, does it turn into butter? Good question. If you shake cream, which has a lot of fat in it, you can shake that cream and lump it all together until it turns into butter. Yes.
So then if there's cream in here, how does it not turn into butter?
Because you're freezing it.
Oh.
And actually, another good question there is that one of the things that we did, and I talked about it super briefly, is we've added an emulsifier. And what that does is that it meshes the water and the fat together nice and tightly so that they don't separate. Your arms are tired? Okay. You're a little person. That's all right.
So I'm curious about the emulsifier because you said you use egg. Do you use whole egg or whites or sometimes either?
No, we use only egg yolks. So egg yolks are a natural emulsifier, and what it does is that it helps bind the water component as well as the fat component together. And so we use egg at about 2% of our formulation is egg yolk, specifically to get that effect. You can do it with other ingredients, but for us, we are all about all natural, and just realizing that eggs are a natural emulsifier. That's something that we use in our formula.
And Mommy, about how long is a while? So you said we have to take it for a while, but how long?
I'd say about 5 minutes is what we're hoping for. I'll take a turn.
We have two more questions. First one is from Natasha. She asks, my daughter is wondering, when you make the ice cream, is it tempting to eat it before it's completely ready?
It's very tempting. So two things I'll say about that is that it's actually important for us to eat it before it's ready. We actually taste our product at many times through our process just to make sure that, yep, it's what we want it to make. So it's very, very tempting, but it's also important that we taste it so that we know that we've made it properly and that it's meeting all the qualities we want it to have.
And then we have our second question from Carol. She asks, how much chocolate syrup would you put into the mix for chocolate ice cream?
Good question. I would say I'd say about 1 to 2 tablespoons. Yeah. And yeah, I mean, you could also do cocoa powder, but I think you're going to find that sorry, I'm thinking. Yeah, you're going to find that cocoa powder is a little bit chalky, so it's a nicer mouthfeel to put in chocolate syrup. It's very, very cold. Leah, do you want another turn?
Is it almost done?
We're about halfway done.
Like 3 or 2 minutes?
About 3 or 2 minutes more.
Here's a really good question. It just came in. All right, so Natasha asked a really good one. What are some of the favorite flavors you have made?
Good question. I feel like one of my favorites is actually vanilla. And for me, vanilla really just lets us taste the ingredients. First of all, vanilla is just a great flavor, but then vanilla really lets the milk shine. And we love the milk that we use. We work with ED Manor to use their milk, and their milk just tastes delicious. So vanilla is one of my favorites.
And you use vanilla to make almost every other ice cream.
It's a good enhancer. Leah, what's one of your favorite flavors that we make?
Mint chocolate chip, I think, and chocolate milk.
And chocolate milk's one of your favorites.
Because I like normal chocolate milk as well.
Yeah. And I think in one of our more creative flavors, whiskey caramel pecans actually is a favorite as well. So it's a bit boozy, caramelly pecans. I feel like it's the best of all worlds.
We have another good question. This one's from Marcia. She's asking, can you use honey instead of sugar?
Absolutely. So when we make our ice cream, so sugar is it's sucrose, and it has certain properties that goes to the ice cream. So honey has enough sucrose in it as well to give us the same properties. So you can use that interchangeably. You can also use maple syrup as well for the same effect.
All right, Peter now asks, what flavor of ice cream didn't work out?
That's an excellent question as well. So at the very beginning, we're talking about how ice cream is a balance of a bunch of different components, where you have to have fat, you have to have water, you have to have sugar and solids. So we have a hard time making flavors where they throw that balance off. And so I feel like ultimately we've made flavors work, but sometimes it takes us a while to do it. So for example, we have a banana flavor. And it seems easy enough to just throw some bananas in there and be done. But bananas have a lot of sugar, bananas have water. And so we were having a hard time, like it tasted great, but we were having a hard time with the texture and having it feel right. So it was just a lot of experimentation of how much do we add, How do we get that flavor to come across? So whenever there's an ingredient that throws off that balance, that's when it becomes challenging to get ice cream to work. And another interesting, I guess, thing to note too is that whenever we start making a new flavor, where I start, my background is that I'm a chemical engineer, so I typically start off with an Excel spreadsheet. I know what the balance of components needs to be, and like I'll study the ingredients. Like, what is this ingredient? What is the sugar content? What's the starch content? How will this ingredient work? And that's how we build our flavors. And then we make sure that obviously it tastes great. So the key to our banana ice cream, just to close that loop, is that we soak. Oh, this is a big secret too. We soak the bananas in the dairy, and then the banana flavor actually goes into the fat of the milk, and that's how we get the flavor. We let that sit for at least 12 hours. We fish the bananas out, and now we've got milk that tastes like banana, and that's a secret that you guys now know about how we make our banana ice cream.
Is this maybe a little bit longer? Or?
Let's have a peek to see where we are.
Okay. We still have about a handful of questions.
Okay. It's getting nice and cold. I'm gonna have a little test. Ooh, yes. It's kind of a slushy texture right now. I don't know if you can see that it's gotten a lot harder. Leah, do you want to give it a touch?
Yeah, it's cold.
It's very cold. Leah, you know what I'm going to get you to do?
What?
I'm going to get you to run around here for a bit. Don't run, though. Just walk around briskly and just freeze it up a little bit more. You can skip. Skipping would be good. Yes, I'm going to wrap it up nicely for you. Any more questions?
Oh, yeah. All right, so next one is from Leslie. She asks, what is the strangest flavor that you've ever tried?
Strangest I've ever tried. Is there a hole? So strangest, well, we have made some creative flavors. So we've partnered often with the museum actually in town for Mac and Cheese Fest and Pickle Fest. So imagine a pickle ice cream. We think it turned out fabulous, but also note that it's not one of our core flavors. So I'd say pickle ice cream is probably one of the most unusual flavors that we've made, but those that have tried it seem to enjoy it. So there's that.
Cool. Leslie also asks, is it possible to make vegan ice cream?
It is actually using the same method. So talking about ice cream again, and the fact that you're trying to balance fat, sugar, water, and the solids, so you can substitute ingredients. So for us, we had used milk, cream, and sugar. You could make that substitution and use coconut milk. If you're using a high-fat coconut milk, it's got a good amount of fat, it's got a good amount of water, add some sugar, and then that can be your base.
And then Kim asks, what emulsifiers would you use for vegan ice creams?
That's another terrific question. And so we actually don't use an emulsifier for our vegan ice creams. What we do instead is that we do something mechanical. So basically right before we churn it, we have a high-speed blender and it gets blended up as much as possible right before churning. And all we're trying to do is make sure that the fat and the water are as dispersed as much as possible. So we do a mechanical process right before churning just to make that happen.
All right, so Diana now asks, what is your best-selling flavor?
It's got to be salted caramel. So that's one of our constant flavors, where the flavor is actually just sugar. But we cook the sugar down fairly carefully. So we basically make a pretty strong caramel. It's a nice dark caramel that we incorporate into our base. Okay, you're back. And I think we're ready, Leah. Good skipping around.
I'm tired.
Okay, well, you know what? I think you should have a break and enjoy some ice cream then. Yes. So our little freezer, and Leah jumping around and getting it all shaken up, has frozen our ice cream. We're going to get it out.
Yeah, that's pretty firm.
Yep. So if you were doing this at home, I would say enjoy it right away, but maybe you'd make it in the afternoon and enjoy it later that night for dessert. And so you can actually store this in your freezer. It'll firm up a little bit more. And one thing I'm going to do really quickly, Leah, is I'm just going to wipe the outside because we just shook it with a bunch of salt.
Yeah, it may be salty.
And we don't want it to be salty. So we just want to try get any of the salt water off the bag.
Because if it opens, then it'll be salty.
And we're just going to get some
That's why you have to close it really, really good.
ice cream. And if you look at it, like the texture, it's a pretty incredible texture. Should we get a second bowl for Jameis?
Yeah.
Okay, let's get a second bowl for Jameis.
That looks good.
This is over here either.
That's your goal, right?
Well, Leah, don't forget the toppings.
Oh, great. Coffee.
So you can bring it right over here for me, Lee.
Two M&M's.
So this can be yours to try.
Oh, nice. Thank you.
You want some M&M's?
You sure? Of course.
Just a teeny sprinkle.
There we go. Thank you.
Yeah.
Leah, that's plenty.
Aww.
And then you can give that a sample. Leah, over here. I want them to see you enjoying your ice cream.
Bye.
And so it froze up nice and quick. So this would be fun to do on a Saturday afternoon.
It's not salty this time.
Oh, that's
It's a little bit salty.
good. That's fantastic. That means that nothing broke or leaked.
Nice.
Yeah. So this is how we make ice cream at home.
Except the bag.
The bag did leak. So I actually have a few ice cream machines at home that I use for testing, and this mix, like I was saying before, would actually work perfectly in that. But if you don't have an ice cream machine, then this is another great technique. It's kind of fun. You could put this
You get to
in.
skip around.
Another thing, a few other methods you could use, that you could put the ice and salt in a Tupperware container, put the bag in that, close it, and you could shake that around to get the same effect. You could put it in a bag and maybe play catch or something, like wrap it up and maybe tape it in, like wrap it up with a tea towel and maybe play a game of catch, and then at the end,
Give it to a dog with not very sharp teeth.
or give it to a dog with not very sharp teeth to run around, says Leah.
All right, more questions. Tons more questions.
Let's hear them.
All right, let's see if we can get through them all. All right, Nick asks, what's the difference between a sorbet and an ice cream?
That's a great question. So
One has fruit in it and the other ones don't.
that's part of the answer, but a sorbet
Vegan.
is actually, it's a sugar water base. So when we make our ice creams, when we make our products, we actually have 4 different bases that we work with. The one that I just took you through it was what I call our sweet cream base. And then when we do our sorbets, we do it's a sugar syrup. So it's sugar and water. It has no fat in it. So by definition, a sorbet has 0 fat in it. And then you would add your flavors. So typically we do a lot of fruit flavors with our sorbets. Although we do have a pretty wicked chocolate sorbet, because you can flavor it a lot of different ways. So a big difference in a sorbet versus an ice cream is that a sorbet has no fat, no dairy in it.
Yeah, because they're
And then you could actually cross if you wanted to make a sherbet. I know you didn't ask this, but if you wanted to make a sherbet is a mix between an ice cream and a sorbet, where it has a little bit of dairy in it, but not as much as a full ice cream would.
All right, next question from Ryan. Ryan asks, does For All have a sugar-free ice cream option?
We don't. And that's because the way we've formulated our ice creams, and based on the science that we understand right now, is that sugar is a functional component of our ice cream. It's working, it's doing something, and that's why it's in our ice cream, and it actually provides the scoopability of our ice cream. So we've been trying to develop a keto ice cream where we're trying to reduce the sugar content. Unfortunately, the trade-off for us right now is that we're getting something that's not really scoopable, it's really crumbly. So that's a work in progress. I'm sure we'll crack it, but that's because of how sugar functions in our base formulation. We don't have that figured out yet, but we're working on it.
So this next one, I think you already partially answered. It's from Sarah. She's just asking, if someone is lactose intolerant but can still eat eggs, is there a milk alternative you can find easy to use with the method you're doing today?
So you can eat eggs, but no milk. You can use other milks then. So you can use a plant-based milk, and it would work okay. In this mix that we did, what you're going to be fighting with, or what you're going to be missing, is a little bit of fat. So actually, that's when we do our vegan ice creams. We use coconut milk. We use a combination of coconut milk and oat milk. And because there isn't enough fat in it, we actually add a little bit of coconut oil just to get the fat ratio correct.
All right. This next question's from Marcia. She says, have you ever made caramel with dates and butter? I wonder what's the ingredient combination.
We haven't. Now I've heard, I've read, I have a lot of ice cream cookbooks. that I use, I feel like, as textbooks. I read them end to end just to learn more as people put more information out there. So dates are often used to get like a caramelly type flavor, especially for like a vegan caramel. So it's not something that we've ever done, but it is something that I've tried at home as a, like, how does this taste? So dates actually are, like, pureed dates are actually a good like caramel substitute.
Great. Leslie asks, which flavor took you the longest to develop?
We were talking about it a bit earlier. Our banana flavor actually took a while to develop. I thought it was going to be easy, and I think 7 iterations later was how long it took to get that right. And just the realization was that anytime we introduced actual banana into the mix, we threw off the balance so much that we couldn't correct it. So it was a matter of steeping the bananas into the flavor. That was iteration 7 before we got that. And it was almost by accident. I'd set up a test that I was going to do the next day, and I put the bananas in the dairy, went to bed, woke up the next morning, had tasted the milk, and I'm like, wait a second, this milk tastes like bananas, and I haven't actually pureed them in there yet. Let me fish the bananas out and make this ice cream, and that was the answer.
It's pretty neat the way it was just like an accident. So Jill asks, can you use whipping cream instead of cream? I think for this activity in particular.
So for this activity in particular, so what we used actually is that we used milk. It was a 2% milk, and we used cream, which was a 35% milk fat cream. If you use all cream, it would be too rich. You might actually get some of that separation happening, like the butter might come out. A good alternative would be if you had half and half cream, which is about 10% milk fat. That would be you could use that for this activity, and don't add any other milk to it. That would be good.
Leslie now asks, how did you first get involved in the ice cream making business?
That's a great question. No, Leah, I want to answer this one. This is
You did all of them.
yeah. So for me, I was saying before that I was an engineer, and I think I wanted to change. I wanted to switch, and I wanted something that was going to let me utilize my education. And really celebrate like what I think is amazing about this region. Like 10 minutes in any direction, I'm at a farm, and there's there are a lot of small businesses here. There's a lot of local produce here. So for me, ice cream was just an idea to create something for myself that would let me celebrate the area. The other aspect of it as well, and part of the reason why we're called For All, is that, and we say that we are natural, local, and mindful. Natural meaning that we use all natural ingredients. Local meaning we source from this region as much as possible. And mindful is that we want to know who our consumer is and what they want to eat. And so really having a business that could, if you had a vegan lifestyle, or if you needed to be gluten-free, it was just making sure that we could give you a great way to treat yourself without compromising yourself. Hopefully that answers the question. Yeah.
And one request from Natasha just asking, will WPL have the ice cream recipe used today available anywhere? Yes, we'll get something. I'll probably get to it by Monday. We'll put something online, and we'll link to it in the video on YouTube and Facebook as well. And I think, Marcia just has more of a comment. Yeah, Marcia has more of a comment because she asked earlier about the dates to make caramel. She says the dates are not for vegan, just to be unprocessed with no chemicals like sugar.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's not something I've ever experimented with, but I'm intrigued, and that's something that I'll probably check out on my own time. Yes, Leah. Do you have a question, Leah?
Yeah, I know the answer to the question. But you know the four flavor groups you have. What were your inspirations for them?
So Leah's question is: so when we're making up flavors at For All, we have 4 flavor categories that we try to fit our flavors into, and so Lee wants to know what the categories are and what the inspiration for them are. So in starting the business, it was, if we really want to cater to everybody, what do people like? So we came up with 4 flavor categories. There's the classic ice cream, so ice cream flavors that aren't weird, you've heard of them, you've had them somewhere else before, and we want to make the best version you've ever had. Then we have our childhood or nostalgia flavors, which are definitely modeled on Leah, who just wants something fun. Then there was our foodie flavors, which are inspired by me. And I want something that I've never heard of. So whenever you have any of our foodie flavors, hopefully you've never had it anywhere else before. And we're kind of giving you a bit of a surprise flavor combination that you hadn't expected. And then we have our vegan flavors. And that was inspired by my oldest daughter, who doesn't handle dairy very well. So as well, I want her to have a great flavor, a great set of ice creams as well when she's experiencing ice cream. And then back to classic, that's modeled on my husband, because when he goes out for ice cream, he wants something he's heard of. He doesn't want anything weird.
But Leah doesn't want anything weird. Leah will picky.
So Nick asks, do you charge extra for the skip churned ice cream instead of machine churned?
Do we charge?
You don't sell it.
Do you skip around and make the ice cream?
We don't. Well, Leah just said we don't sell it, but maybe we should.
Yeah, they can just make it. It's an exercise.
It's an exercise. Yes, everybody wins.
Marcia asks, does there have to be a certain amount of fructose? Can you lessen the sugar and things still work?
That's a super good question. And actually in our commercial formulation, there is a little bit of fructose to allow us to use less sucrose. So we actually work with one of our other ingredients in our formulation is an invert sugar. And so in that ingredient, we've actually taken sucrose and we split it into its monosaccharides, which is glucose and fructose. Fructose is actually sweeter than sucrose, so it allows us to use less sugar. So that is part of our formulation. Good question, and definitely part of our formulation.
Nice. I think that's it for questions. So yeah, I want to thank Adjoa and Leah for coming on out and giving us a tour of their facility today. Making some yummy ice cream. I managed to eat mine while operating the camera and handling questions at the same time. Is yours all done?
Yeah. Or just flush now.
Good stuff.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Nice. So this video should be made available on our YouTube page, and I believe you can still see it on Facebook after the broadcast is over. So if you want to go through and watch the recipe and how we made the activity again, by all means, it should still be there. I will try to get the recipe posted as soon as possible onto the WPEL webpage. And that's it for me. And from these two,
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.
bye. There we go. And then we had